The caretaker government formed in the immediate aftermath of a youth-led movement on September 8-9 has an uphill battle ahead. That is, conducting elections within 6 months, of which 1 month has already passed. This task is easier said than done. The three principal organs of the state, the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, have suffered burns of varying degrees in the ensuing violence, along with the fourth estate, a soft target, a soft target of all kinds of nefarious elements and governments of different hues and colors. Apparently, the cardinal rule of sorts, don't shoot the messenger just because you don't like the message, does not apply in this motherland of all sorts of revolutions, right? What say you, guys? This much for the fourth estate, which by and large has remained financially unwell for quite some time. Back to the smoldering streets, literally. Many police posts tasked with maintaining law and order have burned to a cinder. For many police personnel, according to reports, even uniform has become a luxury, leave alone other amenities. At this point in time, the morale of the police force may not be exactly as high as it had just survived a serious crisis with burns and scars. Facts are indeed frightening, but I am not uh, presenting those gory pictures, pictures of some countryside uh, from the environs of the Kathmandu Valley to just begin a process of healing from that specter of violence and anarchy. Out of more than 14,000 inmates who escaped from 28 prisons and juvenile detention centers across Nepal during the protests, nearly 5,700 individuals, including hardened criminals, are still on the run with looted weapons, while 8,851 escapees, including 341 juvenile detainees, have voluntarily surrendered as of this presentation. What worries the citizenry the most is the lack of a credible search, arrest, and disarming operation targeted at the absconders. One wonders if the government is waiting for some divine signal to start such an operation against those out on the loose, many armed to the teeth on an auspicious date. Still, the government appears serious about conducting the national elections within the stipulated time frame, that is March 5, 2026, and handing over the reins to an elected government. It has directed the Election Commission to make preparations for the polls and called Nepali missions abroad to garner support of host governments and organizations for the cause. That is all well and good, but polls cannot take place in a vacuum. The democratic exercise is impossible without taking a shaken and stirred people into confidence, for which a semblance of order is necessary. In every democracy worth its name, polls are impossible without the participation of political parties, and our strain of democracy is no exception, most probably, that is. But the government seems to have forgotten or undermined, deliberately or otherwise, even to take the parties represented in the erstwhile parliament into confidence, leave alone, leave alone the other political outfits. Apart from issuing diktats to the election commission and making logistical arrangements for the vote, the government should also reach out to the parties if it is indeed serious about fulfilling its sole mandate. On their part, the tried and tested parties, especially the three major parties, the Nepali Congress, the CPN-UML, and the CPN-Mao Center. They should not forget that a free, fair, and credible vote can still take place, can still take the country out of this long and dark tunnel of anarchy, this at a time when their credibility has hit rock bottom in the wake of a series of corruption scandals. On the contrary, the two major parties represented in the erstwhile parliament, the Nepali Congress and the CPN-UML, have begun pressing for the reinstatement of the lower chamber, the House of Representatives, even as a time-worn, rudderless, and much discredited top brass remains at their helm. The preps for the polls and the calls for the reinstatement of the lower chamber appear to be taking the country to a collision course amid rising discontent among the Gen Z, which spearheaded the recent movement demanding corruption control, action against the corrupt, an end to nepotism, good governance, for good governance and political stability, and other sections of the society that harbor similar aspirations. All in all, the time has come for the top brass of the parties to make the biggest contribution of their lifetime, of their respective political careers spanning decades, by hanging up their boots, facilitating the elevation of relatively young leaders through a democratic process within the framework of their parties, guiding these leaders through the transition and them, subjecting themselves, the old guard subjecting itself to probes into their alleged involvement in scams, which have become their legacy. These leaders can help usher Nepal into a new era and avert a looming disaster. That's a small sacrifice for leaders, isn't it? Given that they have spent years behind bars for higher ideals like democracy, human rights, good governance, and whatnot, right? The good old Marcus Aurelius sounds so very sane, even in these mad times when he says, how is it with your ruling part? On this all depends. All other things within or without our control are but corpses dust and smoke. With this, I wrap up this edition of Soft Talk. Keep watching, keep listening. Thank you.